All right, Nikko. Cool. What's your audience?
Resorters and all-inclusive resort in Cancun.
Wow.
Or Tulum, whatever you want. I think Tulum's in Mexico. It might be France. Sounds like
What? So the line will come better.
yeah, it's Cancun.
So, are you doing beach evangelism or what? What's the?
So part of their inclusive package is they get free Chinese food for lunch, but they have to hear a sermon.
It's like a timeshare deal.
It's a timeshare.
Yeah, and I get the time.
Okay.
The time is worth it. They eat Chinese food in Cancun.
It's a very international resort. It is all inclusive after all.
And what are you gonna do for your reading? You gonna read it through?
Yeah, let's read it
This is chapter 3.
when I read it. Good?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Thank you for coming to my talk today. Hope you have been enjoying your stay in Cancun. Part of the deal is that you get the free food for lunch that you just ate, and I'm sure are enjoying. And you also get to hear a lesson from me since we're paying for the food. I don't know if you've heard the line, rules are written in blood. But the idea is that if someone does something that results in an injury or they get hurt, something that can bring about blood, then a rule is made to try to prevent and avoid people from doing that thing in the future. Particularly for people like me who don't read rules, I always joke to myself, like, I don't read signs on doors or signs in general, because they always tell me what not to do, never something I should do. But that's exactly why rules are made, is to help protect people like me who are ignorant or people who are unaware. But again, sometimes people like me avoid those things, and so people also hire watchmen. Here at the resort, you might have a lifeguard watching on the beach in case you don't do something that may result in blood. Or one purpose of lifeguards on a beach is for them to keep an eye on if there are sharks in the water. So obviously, if you are on the beach wading in the water, then it's good to know that there's a shark in the water, because the lifeguard may have a better view than you. In the text we're reading today, we read about someone who's hired as a watchman, a kind of lifeguard for them, per se. For a little bit of context, God plants a people, Israel, in a land, and he tells them, I want you to rest on the sand in the resort of righteousness. He kind of puts them in a, per se, like an all-inclusive resort, and all they have to do is just not wade in the water because there's sharks in the water. He tells them, the sharks just being like wickedness, per se. He said, don't do this. If you just wade in the water, the shark's going to smell your blood and they're going to come attack you. It's dangerous for you. So he tells them, all you have to do in this all-inclusive resort is rest in the sands of righteousness. Rest in the resort of righteousness. But they don't do that. And so God exiles them from the land he put them. In other words, they were in the resort, but because they weren't listening to the rules of the resort, they get kicked out to another island, per se. And in the chapters preceding this, God basically comes and makes a visit to one of those people and says, hey, you're still on an island, there's still water surrounding you, you still have the opportunity to do wickedness, to wade in the waters of wickedness, per se. So I want you to continue to be a watchman, to continue to be a lifeguard for these people. And so then God sends him back to the island, Ezekiel, the person we're going to be reading about in the text today. But for the first 7 days, Ezekiel doesn't know what to do. He got a new job. He's the watchman for these people, for Israel. He's their lifeguard, but he doesn't know what to do. He just sits there stunned for 7 days. I'm sure you felt that way before. Your first week on the job, maybe you didn't get the most explicit directions. So you're just like, I don't really know what to do. I don't want to make a wrong move. So you just kind of have analysis paralysis and don't do anything at all. It's what Ezekiel is facing just prior to the passage. And that leads us to our reading today. So I'm going to stop and read says, "And at the end of 7 days, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel. Whenever you hear a word from my mouth, you shall give them warning from me. If I say to the wicked, you shall surely die, and you give him no warning, nor speak to warn the wicked from his wicked way, in order to save his life, that wicked person shall die for his iniquity. But his blood I will require at your hand. But if you warn the wicked, and he does not turn from his wickedness, or from his wicked way, he shall die for his iniquity, but you will have delivered your soul. Again, if a righteous person turns from his righteousness and commits injustice, and I lay a stumbling block before him, he shall die. Because you have not warned him, he shall die for sin, and his righteous deeds that he hath done shall not be remembered, but his blood I will require at your hand. But if you warn the righteous person not to sin, and he does not sin, he shall surely live, because he took warning, and you will have delivered your soul. And the hand of the Lord was upon me there. And he said to me, Arise, go out into the valley, and there I will speak with you. So I arose and went out into the valley, and behold, the glory of the Lord stood there, like the glory that I had seen by the Kebar Canal, and I fell on my face. But the Spirit entered into me and set me on my feet, and he spoke with me and said to me, Go, shut yourself within your house. And you, O son of man, behold, cords will be placed among you, and you shall be bound with them, so that you cannot go out among the people. And I will make your tongue cling to the roof of your mouth, so that you shall be mute and unable to reprove them, for they are a rebellious house. But when I speak with you, I will open your mouth, and you shall say to them, Thus says the Lord God, He who will hear, let him hear, and he who will refuse to hear, let him refuse, for they are a rebellious house. The title of my talk today is Watchmen. The main point is that God appoints watchmen to warn from wickedness. It's broken into two parts. The numbers that run 16 to 21 is just criteria. You kind of see the criteria God gives this watchman Ezekiel for his job as a watchman, as a lifeguard of sorts. The second part is the numbers 22 to 27, communication. God makes explicit how he wants Ezekiel in his job, in his role as a watchman, to communicate with him. So as we see at the beginning of the passage, 17, 18, first thing we see is that God tells Ezekiel as a watchman that there's two groups, the wicked and the righteous. And he tells Ezekiel to tell him two different things. He says, one, if there's someone wicked, that is, if they're on this island and they're wading in the waters of wickedness, kind of bleeding out in the water, and there's sharks infesting the water, he says, your job as a watchman, as a lifeguard, is to warn them, to tell them to, hey, get out of the water, repent, turn from your ways. That these sharks, these dangers, the sin, the errors, the wrongness, that you will not only face the repercussions of that, but that it will, it threatens you. Kind of what I was saying before, the rules are written in blood. When there's sharks in the water, you don't go to them. And then God tells him, interestingly, not just about the wicked, but he has them talk to the righteous as well. It's not even just the people who are wading in the water when they shouldn't be, but he wants Ezekiel as a watchman, as a lifeguard of sorts, to tell the people who are already on the beach, hey, don't go in the water. So it's not just the wicked he needs to warn, but the righteous. The idea is that it's all in the same direction. If you're in the waters, if you are committing wickedness, risking yourself, threatening yourself, then get out, get onto the land. Rest in the right way that the Lord has given you. Follow the rules that the Lord has given you. And if you are righteous, don't go out into the water. He says in the passage, you could have been righteous your entire life. You could be resting on the sand. But if you go into the water and a shark gets you, it doesn't matter. It was all for naught. It's interesting because the word, he says for their iniquity, but the original word in the original language is actually ambiguous. It can mean that they will face the repercussions for their iniquity, but also in their iniquity. So it's not just that their wrongness, their wickedness, they're wading in the water, they're bleeding out when there's sharks in the water. It's not just that, it's this effect That it's not just kind of corrupting them and threatening them and getting them to bleed out. It's also a status. It's how God sees them. So that the ambiguity of the word is intentional by Ezekiel in his first person. Is that the sin is not only the cause of their demise, but also the status of them in the wrong. And God basically tells him, look, their response doesn't matter beyond that. You have one job as a watchman, as a lifeguard. If they're in the wrong, tell them to stop being in the wrong. And if they're in the right, continue reminding them not to do wrong. And beyond that, it is on them. So God makes clear the status of his job security. It's like you can't control what they do. It's basically just tell them to do the right thing. Keep on bringing them onto the shores. Ensure that they're resting in the sands of righteousness. But God isn't just concerned with the criteria of the job, but also communication. You see, this was just kind of like a message. Ezekiel is out on the island per se, and God barely just sent a message, a letter to him about the criteria. But then God actually tells him in the letter, hey, I want you to come back to me in person. I don't know if you've had a job before, but it's one thing to get an email from your boss or to get a call, but if the boss says, hey, come to my office, things are about to get serious. You know that he's really emphasizing something, and he wants to make sure that you are aware of that. Especially in the book here, where we see what Ezekiel had seen before, the glory, the magnificence of God. Ezekiel says, I went into the valley and behold, the glory of the Lord stood there, like the glory that I had seen by the Kebar Canal. What we saw in the previous chapters is just how far above God is with the rest of the world, just in charge of everything. So the reason why God wanted to bring Ezekiel here is to just reemphasize, like, hey, this is how serious I am about what I'm telling you to do, because I'm in charge. I want my people to not be wading in the waters of wickedness. I want my people to be resting in the sands of righteousness. And then he gives the command to Ezekiel. What he tells him is, I want you to only speak when spoken to. He draws this image of being shut up in the house and being bound with cords and his tongue clinging to the roof of his mouth. The idea is that God doesn't want Ezekiel as a watchman, as a lifeguard, saying or speaking anything unless spoken to. God says, if you're going to be a watchman, if you're going to be a lifeguard, sitting on the tower, you can only blow the whistle when there's an actual emergency. And it's when I tell you to blow the whistle. If you're swimming in a pool, or if you're here at the resort, I imagine you don't want the lifeguard distracted, talking to other people, or saying different things. When you have someone who is a watchman for you in your life, you want him focused. You want him ensuring your security. You want everything he says, every sound you hear from that point to be the real deal, so that you know when to get out of the water, so that you know, hey, I need to stay on the sand. And that's what God is emphasizing here. It's like everything you're going to say is going to be from me, so that these people who are around you, who are doing wickedness, who might be wading in the waters of wickedness, that they take you seriously. And God re-emphasizes at the very end of this passage that it's ultimately up to them how they respond. But as long as you do your job as a lifeguard, as long as you do your job as a watchman, their fate is in their hands. You have your job. Your job is secure. They are held responsible for continuing to do wickedness. The question this raises, then, is how did these people respond? God commissioned Ezekiel as a watchman for them, as a lifeguard. He gave him the criteria. He made sure that Ezekiel knew very well what he wanted him to do. And through the rest of the book, Ezekiel does that. He does his job rightly and correctly as a lifeguard. But how do you think they responded? How would you respond? You're here on a resort. If you heard your lifeguard blowing a whistle because there were sharks in the water, because it was dangerous to be in the water, what would you do? Get out of the water, right? But these people don't do that in this book. And so they ignore and they stay in the water and they continue to put themselves at risk wickedness and continue to be eat up by their sin. And so God keeps sending lifeguards and appointing new ones and hoping that they actually listen, but they never do. And this goes on and on and on for hundreds of years. So finally, these people are exiled in their own land, and God is still back at the resort. And people want to go back there, but God doesn't want to bring them back to the resort, the all-inclusive resort, until he knows they're not going to get in the water anymore, because he doesn't want any liability on his hands, because he wants his island to be perfect. So one day, God sends his son. Instead of watchmen raising people up from those people themselves, the old resorters, God decides to send his son, who's going to take over the resort, or take over the kingdom, to tell them, hey, it's time. It's time to bring you back to the all-inclusive resort, or God's kingdom, where you can have everything you ever wanted, everything's covered, everything's taken care of. God's making sure that every need or desire you want is met. But now, as his son, who's going to be in charge of the kingdom, you need to listen to me. You need to trust me. And so, what do you think they did? What would you do? You said if a lifeguard told you to get out of the water, you'd get out in the water, right? So if the son of the resort owner comes, you should listen to him. But that's not what they did. Instead, they drug him out into the water and drowned him, killed him. In other words, in history, God sent his son. They crucified him, killed him, but he resurrected. It didn't work. But his message still continued. It carried on, and his son actually commissioned more lifeguards, more watchmen for people. So people continue to, tell them, hey, this thing's still on. You can still have everything you ever wanted. You can still go to this all-inclusive resort. You can still go to heaven. But you got to believe what his son said before. You got to trust in his son that this thing is real, the real deal. And one of these watchmen, one of these guys, is Paul. We see later in this book, after his son came, that Paul is trying to tell people who are wanting to be back in the presence of God and wanting to be back in this heavenly environment where everything's taken care of. Paul is trying to tell them to return and believe and trust in the Lord and get out of the water and to continue resting on the sands of righteousness. But they riot, they revolt, they go against him. So at some point in Acts 18, 5-6, Paul shakes his hands and says, I'm done. Your blood be on your own hands. Paul, as a watchman, as a lifeguard, had done his job. He told them, he issued the whistle. He tried to remind them, hey, it's still on. You need to continue behaving in God's way. You need to trust in what the Son said. You need to trust in the Son that this thing is real, that you can be back in the presence of God. But they didn't believe him. So at some point he just said, all right, I'm going to other people. And so instead he started warning other people. Paul did his job. To go to the illustration, the people that had originally been in the all-inclusive resort, who had been exiled, Paul went to them and told them, hey, you can go back to the resort, but you need to continue staying on the water. But they didn't listen, so Paul went to other people that were on the island. He brought in more people to the resort, people who weren't even originally supposed to be a part of the resort. He said, hey, these people aren't coming. We have plenty of slots that you can come into, so why don't you go ahead and come in? But they had to follow by the same rules. They got to know not to wade in the waters of wickedness, because the sharks in the water, because you'll get eaten up. Everyone now has to live by and abide by the rules of the resort. And instead you need to rest on the sands of righteousness. You need to trust this message that the Son said, that everyone's going to go back to the resort if you're just willing to listen to the rules and trust what the Son says about the rules. That has carried on to this day, and that is what I'm here to tell you today. I'm just another watchman in a long chain of watchmen. I want you to have this opportunity. I'm sure this all-inclusive resort that you're at today is fantastic. Drinking all the pina coladas you want, eating all the Chinese food, all the shrimp, all the lobsters. But this other resort, the kingdom of heaven, that the Son has brought in, and that the Son wants to bring everyone to, is so much better than you could ever even get at an all-inclusive resort. This is just worldly, and this is going to end for you at some point. I don't know how long your stay is here. But the thing about the kingdom of heaven, it is like an all-inclusive resort for all time. It's everything you ever wanted forever. And all you got to do is trust in the Son, trust in what the Son said, and just trust in following the way of the Lord. Trust in the Lord. I went scuba diving once, and I was just kind of out in Panama City Beach, probably 50, 60 feet down. But me and a buddy were just going lobstering. And I remember when I reached under a rock and saw the lobster, I was excited because obviously lobster's delicious. I'm sure you've had your fill here. It's an all-inclusive resort. And so I was just scooping them in the bag. And all of a sudden I see a light shine on the rock, back and forth. And I look, and my buddy's behind me, scuba rig, 50, 60 feet down. He does this. And I'm like, okay, cool. But like, hey, plenty of good lobster here, and I want to make sure we're eating good. So I kind of like wave it off, turn back to the rock, and I'm gathering it again, and then I see the light again, even more frantic. And I'm like, okay, he must be serious. So I turn around. As soon as I turn around, I see this 10-foot mako just come up to the back of his head and just veer off. And so then I'm like, okay, like it's time to get out of here. This is serious. And so we go kind of into the middle where our line is, and we start going up. But it's one of the most surreal sights, because I don't even know how far it is in the water, 30, 40 feet. But if you've ever seen a shark actually swim in the water, it is the most terrifying thing. Because my whole field of vision, I'm telling you, that just crossed the field of vision in less than a second. And I'm sitting there just floating, having to take my time, go up to the surface as this shark is circling and circling and circling. My personal life is the same. You know, so much for wading in the waters of wickedness, I've been deep diving in the waters of wickedness. And when you're that deep, just the speed of the shark, as you're bleeding out, the dangers of your sin can just come up and get you like that. The purpose of lifeguards, the purpose of watchmen when sharks are on the beach, is so because they have a better angle. They can recognize when the danger's there. But when you're wading neck deep in the water, you might not even be able to see the shark that's under the surface. They can actually see it. The purpose of me telling you this is that I might have a better grasp of, you know, as an outside perspective, where are you going wrong in life? I'm telling you, it's time to come out into the sands of righteousness. You know, as someone who was diving in a life of sin, and then I needed the call of the Son. I needed a watchman to come into my life and tell me to come out. So I don't know where you are today. You might be deep diving in the waters of wickedness. You might be wading neck deep. You might be flirting and just dipping your toes into the water. But if you want the all-inclusive resort, the best lobster you've ever had, the best drinks you've ever had, forever, it's time to come out of the water and on to the sands of righteousness. It's time to trust in the Son. Because when He comes back, if you're caught in the water, it's game over. But if He finds you resting in His word, trusting His message, then you're going back to the island. Thank you for your time today.
You earned your food. Oh, we earned our food. We are food.
You are now shark bait.
Short, big, hoo-ha.
That's the title right there.
In the Shark Tank.
They're gonna be like, I don't know if I want to go swim that.
Yeah, right.
I was like, I don't know if that would be good information at all.
All right, Nikko, how are you edified working on this sermon?
seriousness with which God wanted Ezekiel to do the job. And not just for the wicked, but for the righteous. That he was like, you need to be constantly reminding them, like, hey, do the right thing, otherwise their blood is on your hands. So I just think, watchmen in whatever way have continued on through the years, whether prophet, apostle, priests, preachers, so forth. So,
Brett?
Yeah, I think along the same lines, like the seriousness even for us as believers today, because like the passage he connected us to with Paul, like Paul was saying, like your blood's on your own head. So like there is still a seriousness about the Great Commission for us. Like, what does that mean if we continue to shrink back at sharing the gospel with people? Like essentially refusing to warn them of the wrath to come. So yeah, just a sobriety.
I was encouraged as someone who wants and desires to be a watchman to make sure I'm telling others of the dangers in front of them.
Yeah, I think I was encouraged encouraged to consider the seriousness of how dangerous sin is. I really felt that, so it was good.
It's going to cost me everything to continue to stay in the waters of unrighteousness that want to follow the rules.
The lifeguards must be focused on the job.
And I loved hearing just the little snippet of your testimony at the backside. I was not just waiting, but I was deep in the waters of wickedness, and I needed the sun to call me out. It was encouraging. I was grateful for you to share that. What's something you would want to improve on this thing?
The gospel connection was so tough. I was wrestling with so many different ones. I was like, I don't know. It felt a little cheap because it's like, it's kind of just blood connection to blood. But Paul is doing something very similar. But yeah, it was tough. I mean, it's a super descriptive passage. So then and then doing it for unbelievers alone. Yeah, I don't know. I was just struggling with it in general.
So at the very end you said trust in the Son, trust his message, which is getting at the gospel of grace for sure. Earlier you had said like trust the Son, trust the rules, and just thinking of like nuancing. It's not like you'll get to stay at the all-inclusive resort if you always stay on the beach perfectly, but just nuancing that he's the only one that's ever truly stayed on the beach and listened to his Father's will, just so they don't like take away like if as long as I follow the rules too, then I can go to that all-inclusive resort.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say. Okay, yeah, I forgot to make it part of my illustration. I was gonna say like the reason why he kicked you off is because he was gonna start building a wall around the waters. So then once you're in the resort, you don't have to worry about the temptation to the waters anymore.
Build the wall.
It's okay. Yeah. He's gonna build a wall.
And then the sharks will fund it.
Yeah. The sharks are involving their growing feet. They
The
won't
sharks
get
are
in.
gonna fund the wall.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I appreciate that.
Wow. It really identifies who's on this island.
I was
In Mexico, you're building a wall.
I was confused, and that the resort, well, like it was the land of Israel for them,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
the analogy it kept getting blurred in my mind because then you went to the gospel connection, it's the kingdom of God, and I was like, this is all you've ever wanted. It's like, well, I want to go to this resort. I'm at this resort getting drunk, doing everything I want for myself. So you're telling me I believe in this, I get to go do that further. And so that image, I was like, what's the resort really referring to? Is it referring to Israel? Is it referring to the kingdom? Or is it referring to my own personal
It's
kingdom?
the presence of God.
Yeah. So that was just unclear.
Yeah.
So I think, one, I almost felt like you rolled back to it too much and in too many different ways in particular to just be like, where the heck are we? As a setup, it's great for where you are. But I think you set it up, you explain it, and then you move for a while. And if you need to come back to it, great. The other thing is you made heaven like equal to the all-inclusive rather than like so much better. I mean, you said essentially it's like this, but forever. So you made the betterness only in the amount of time, and maybe like the best lobster.
Sounds pretty good.
I hate lobster. But I mean, you can see that there's a qualitative difference that you needed to drive that.
Like, I wanted to work on a controlling image, but it's
Yeah.
like balancing that with the
Yeah.
actual.
How much versus too little, right?
So tough.
It's a hard balance, man.
I think to have you use it more. I actually thought you used it in the first half only to explain, in the second half primarily to apply. And I think if you would have used it, you know, I don't know about explaining more, but you didn't use it at all to explain the first half, and I don't think the explanation or any application came until like 13 minutes. So even quick things like, isn't it encouraging that God blows a whistle? You know, that there would be a God that does this kind of like, I just feel like you could have used it more in application.
I think you came really close to turning the intro on us, but it was still out there.
Yeah.
Like, that guy's in the water. Those people are on the beach. I'm not the person on the beach or in the water. And so it didn't set up enough tension as you went through the rest of your points to force me to consider my state.
Yeah, that's good. Like early on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all out there.
And you said per se 4 times.
Did I?
Per se.
Did I per se?
Yeah, it's just like that.
I thought, right, and I just thought one other thing on that, not even putting it out there, but creating tension, instead of just like, you ate, so you're stuck here listening.
Detention. I'm between you and the
Something like, if there was something dangerous here, wouldn't you want somebody to tell you? If you're enjoying it, if something was gonna ruin it, you wanna know before that happened.
Yeah.
Like, just something like that. I'm here about to tell you, not only that, but even in more significant ways.
Safety meeting.
So I think that your playfulness with the imagery, it got to the point of being very unhelpful. Because when you read the text, it was pretty clear, especially in the whole book of Ezekiel. It was maybe one of the more clearer texts, and then with all these parallels, especially words shark. Then so the problem is outside of me. It's the shark. So I need to get away from it. Where is it in me? And you know, so the beach, the lifeguards, so what is it all about? So if you use it more, so it felt like this. So you had the picture and you said, so in the Bible it's like this. Whereas it would have been better. Well, this is the Bible. In the real world, it's like this. So you're gonna reverse an analogy.
That was tough. So hard.
That's right, like the more complex the analogy, the more explanation you have to do. And like, you were world building in this thing.
I like it rising to the extreme.
Bros in Minecraft.
That's so true. That's so funny.
Yeah, I was like, how do I?
Counter.
I know, because the question is like, once I get to gospel connection, I'm well past my passage. So I'm like, how do I? Is there even a way to still use this? Should I toss it outright? Then it feels like it's just all said and gone. And there's a lot of trying to. Yeah, it's good. It's tough using controlling images.
My thing is, I was kinda lost in your arrangement piece. Like when you said your 2 points early, they were just too quick that I didn't get them. I got something about the second one was communication, but I missed the first one. But then even when you were talking through it, I didn't know when we were in one point or another. So I was struggling to figure out like how we get to even your main point from that.
So you, in the first section, you had a really good contrast of like, hey, if you're down in the water, get out of the water. And then the other side of that is if you've been up on the land, stay on the land. If you did, I missed it. I don't think you had mentioned the warning from God to Ezekiel at that point about I'm going to require it from you. So then when you eventually went to Paul, it was like that would have been even more powerful, I think, if you would have kind of set the stakes when you were in the first move. So.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay.
Chinese food.
Yeah, what did that represent?
Chinese food?
Yeah.
Okay. Where is this in the islands?
I thought there was an insufficient amount of definitions for different terms. So like we started talking about Ezekiel, like who the heck is Ezekiel? You mentioned exile. God, who is God? Why do like I know that concept, but what God are you talking about? It said repent, iniquity, sin, righteousness. So a lot like this. He said the sands of righteousness banging in your thing. I was like, I don't know what this stuff means. As this unbeliever, maybe there's a variety of audience. Some might know better, but we didn't know what you meant by it specifically.
Yeah, I think your image, because I feel like this is where you're getting most of your critique. I think your image was actually really visceral, like and experiential for us, which can be good, but also really bad because it really detracted, I think, from this picture of like a prophet who might be getting in a lot of trouble if he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing or getting hurt or something like that. So a different controlling image of like some kind of an advocate or something might have been more helpful to just draw our minds on the text.
Something I've noticed as you've done the short morning prompts is that you are much more deliberate with your pauses, and I did not notice that here. And so I think it would have been helpful, even as there was lots of arrangement stuff, there's other stuff to work on. We might have had an easier time following if a lot of the conversation wasn't so fast. Yeah.
That's good. Appreciate it.
So the thrust of your sermon up until the conclusion, it didn't feel like you were landing punches, more like something comfort, not a comfort maybe. So no punches, and I think because it was very descriptive, very descriptive. Oh, sad, whereas I think the text allowed you to actually land those punches. So starting with your main point is very descriptive. God appoints watchmen to warn. It's okay, good. But if it was something, get away from the waters while you can, so that there's a sense of urgency, and then you kind of, how can your entire sermon be? Maybe like point 1 will be, you'll die in the water. Maybe point 2 is going to be, the lifeguard is going to be off duty. So, yeah, so something.
There's blood in the water.
There's blood in the water. Yes, something that both of your points would be explaining why do I need to get out of this water. So it's dangerous. The lifeguard is going to be off soon. So that you have these punches throughout, and then finish strong with the conclusion.
Lifeguard's gonna be off soon.
Yeah, he's gonna retire permanently.
My last one, just before you have us read, maybe just a line about what we should be listening for. Hey, listen for the danger that they're going to be warned for and how they should respond. Especially for people who are not used to like knowing how to read the Bible. But what's something you liked that you did, or something you tried that was new and exciting?
I think it's maybe the second time I've used a controlling image, so it's fun to just toy with that.
Yeah.
The other one's like a security blanket or something. It's only profits, I guess. But happy with
Great.
something.
We do reverse now. I'm stuck.
Okay. The last will be first.
That's the rule here. I didn't make him up. I think your conclusion was brilliant. So it was personal, but not only that it was personal, but that you used the images very well. So this is okay. Now I understand. I don't have to be drowning in water. If my toes are in the water, I'm already gonna be dying. I'm not gonna make it. And then you said, well, I was diving and I was in danger. By God's grace, and the sun called me. Oh, now it all makes sense. It was a great way to. I think it would have worked in the real setting. That you would have people would have understood what you wanted to do. Very compelling, powerful images. Well done.
Ethan started to mention this earlier. We're talking about the controlling image. A lot of what you were doing with your illustrations were very tangible things that were seeable or doable types of things. Like we can see what you were getting at, the idea, especially if we're at a resort dealing with sharks, those types of things. So lifeguards, contextually done well.
Yeah, I thought your somebody else will steal it. Your personal story of the shark was awesome.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I think of sharks like out here because personally I hate the ocean anyways. So like I've never really thought about like what it would be like actually to experience a shark. So you telling that story of it, like that's terrifying, and I think you had already built some tension, so it really just brought home like get away from this thing.
You were also your most natural self when
Yeah.
telling that story.
Yep.
That was like normal Nikko. As normal as you get.
The Nikko will like.
Yeah.
I like this illustration where you're talking about Ezekiel's job to tell him to do the right thing. And went into like, it's like when you get your boss's email, so you come to the office, like there's meaning to it, and like Ezekiel now having this weight to go and do what he's called to do. That was a good, helpful illustration.
Yeah, dude, you weaponized your sermon title so well. You used it in so many different ways. I mean, you probably used it at least 20 times, and that's a good thing. Like, Ezekiel's a watchman. God the Son, the ultimate watchman, came. We're watchmen. It's just so many different ways where you just had it interwoven throughout, and it's really helpful.
I really liked the intro. The rules are written in blood. Like that has a way of both talking about rules and stuff like that you're rolling on, and the severity of it. It's concise, poignant, and I thought you engaged with it well, really.
Yeah, I appreciated your delivery. So I think I don't think you use many no's. And even though sometimes I didn't understand what exactly you mean by all these things, but at least you're engaging with us. Okay, I wanna understand what he's gonna tell me next.
Yeah.
So I don't think you struggle with the delivery. I think if you work on this kind of piercing aspect of your content, that it's actually very sharp. I think you will do the delivery. So you already got everything for delivery, just working on the arguments. Yeah, I really enjoyed the delivery.
Appreciate it. I was gonna say something with the intro as well. Just you raised the stakes right there at the beginning.
Yeah.
And helped us see immediately. Rules have significant consequences.
Yeah.
In blood. I had never heard the term, but because of the way you explained it, I was like, okay, I can understand how somebody would say this term. So, yeah, the intro was good. Pulled you up to the cliff. Just go over it.
After you did your shark illustration, you clapped. And I was like, yes! He returned back to the clap, because at the beginning of your sermon, you started talking about the shark, and you were like, the shark attacks, and you did this like really dramatic clap. I was like, oh, that was good. I wrote it down. And then you did it again, and I was like, dude, he returned! I was like, this is awesome. Clap.
Yes.
But it made me remember, like,
Chiastic clap.
that's been the theme for the whole time, like, get away from these sharks. It's good.
Clap back.
Clap back, bro.
I really like
Sharp clap.
I liked at the end how you tied it back, and you're like, you should listen to the watchmen because when they have the better angle. They're looking down in the water and they can see the shark waiting there when you might not be able to see it. So listen to the watchman giving you this message. Like that was a really good illustration.
Yeah. Dude, I was gonna say, like, nuance and doing stuff different aside, like, I feel like I saw your sermon. I didn't just hear a sermon, I saw it. Like, it was so, like a movie almost. And, like, even just thinking of prophets, how they're so heavy on imagery. Like, bro, your sermon, it was like a picture sermon, like a film. So just, like, your communication, I'm almost thinking, like, what people praise Spurgeon for, where it's just like they see, it's just this unfolding thing, and you did really well.
Appreciate it.
I had a few really good lines that moved things forward applicationally. So one was like, in one sense, it's like, yeah, of course you warn the wicked. Yeah, Cameron's loudest laugh.
I thought it was Jeremy.
I got it. No.
But then also you emphasize the part that we would probably be tempted to overlook, which is you have to warn the good person too. Because you might be good your whole life, and one mistake, and you go in, and you're dead. So again, leveling the urgency, that's why the application. You talked about, the criminal office, which has been met, but you talked also the bit about only speaking what is necessary so that people take you seriously. So again, just an idea that what is being spoken by the watchman, like you don't want a lifeguard blowing the whistle if there's no danger, right? So you're just like saying, when it is warned, you should take it seriously. And then I thought your testimony at the end was like, I think that's a great thing to do in evangelistic preaching, because it shows like, hey, this message is what changed me. And so to move towards the end there, it's like, gotta warn everybody, you should really listen, and look what it did for me. So I think those kind of three rules in the sermon actually were driving towards what you're looking at. There you go. All right, man.
Well done, Nikko.
Are we
We are.
watch someone else preach?
Gospel connections in Ezekiel. Like it's
In some places.
some places, but then there's other places like I think I know what happening here, and it's like wait, how do I then connect it to the unbelievers?
Yeah,
We only got 27 books to pull from.
chapter 1:128 would have been chill. Revelation 4:5.
Yeah, that one was not done.
Yeah, some of them.
Thanks, John.
There's a few that would be really easy, and a few that are gonna be really hard.
You should do Revelation 19.
Oh. When the sun comes back,
The sharks are getting burned.
no more sharks.
Sharks are dead.
What are you all doing until the dinner?
I'm not going tonight. I'm signed up for March.
I've got yeah, I saw that. What the heck?
I thought I could sign up tonight, but we just have a lot of stuff going on next week, so I figured I'd stay home and get my mom.
You're going to bring food to the man in the beach,
You know me.
drop some food off.
Love it, you know. There's a man in the beach.
I don't know how you find this stuff, man.
Instagram Reels. There's a man in the beach.
Going with your family?
We're not going tonight. No, we're gonna go to the one in March. Yeah. Actually, my wife isn't even coming because our baby goes down at 6. So, yeah.
Time did you get up?
5.
And you too?
I get up at 5. A lot of days I get up at 4.
What?
Yeah.
You go to bed.
Like 10. 10:30.
Really? 6 hours away?
I don't know. I just do a lot of work anymore. So like I'll do like a lot of my worksheets and stuff. I'll just get over to it, or if I have like emails I gotta catch up on or something like that. Or like today I had
Nikko
something
did.
at 7:30. So
How'd it go? How was life in Cancun? Good?
Did you give some warnings in the resort? There's warnings.
whistling for the sharks.
Sharks. I had a controlling image. Sharks.
Building a wall.
Building a wall.
It's
basically like Ezekiel's watchman.
Good.
That's crazy. Wickedness. There you go. Resting in the sands of righteousness.
Oh, there you go.
Get out of the water. Get out of the water.
Get out of the water.
Get out of the water.
He said, the first thing it was like, I hope you're enjoying your Chinese food. The writing is in blood. I was like,
What?
What? I was thinking, your first line about like
Like,
blood.
I don't know if you ever heard the saying, but the rules are written in blood.
Yeah, but you were telling us right before that.
Enjoy your Chinese.
Enjoy your Chinese food. I was like, my domain, it's covered.
My church is covering the Chinese food, so you have to listen to me too.
There you go.
Wow.
Hey, it's all inclusive. Cultures are included.
Yes. Nice.
The
Alright,
Chinese
see
food
someone
in
tonight.
Cancun.
Well, you coming, right?
Yeah, I'll see you tonight. See you.
No, I'm just finding to go run my dog out.
An all-inclusive
greater, you or the sermon?
Me. The sermon and me. Wonderfully tenderized.
Excellent.
Got a lot to learn, Caden.
Very nice. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy the dinner.
Yeah, you're not gonna be there?
No, I'm going to the next one in a couple weeks. So.
Nikko pose.
Are you going tonight? What? You going tonight?
Yeah, unfortunately. You're staying and working? Alright, Nikko and I are gonna go grab a beer. You were good in the water and grab a beer.
Sharp.
We're gonna go to Bar David and drink. Drink until 6 o'clock.
Yeah.